This is the Good Neighbor Podcast, the place where local businesses and neighbors come together. Here's your host, Jeff Gardner.
And welcome to another episode of the Good Neighbor Podcast. Today we have another good neighbor on, Jennifer Greco of Lucidity Corp. Jennifer, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to this conversation. Some of the guests we have on the show are our clients, so obviously we know a lot about them. Some of the guests on the show we just shop at all the time, but many of them we don't know. And because we're in the world of marketing, sometimes we'll hear from a business, oh, everybody knows me. And it's like we hunt for businesses. And there's just so many of them. There's thousands. I believe the last time I checked in Simcoe County, there was something like 6,500 small and medium local businesses. That wasn't even including the big guys. So there's a lot, and there's a lot of new people coming and going. So I know very little about Lucidity Corp, which makes me kind of the ideal demographic that we're reaching out to here. So I'm just going to let my curiosity drive me, try to learn as much as I can about you and your business. So let's start in the most obvious place. What is Lucidity Corp?
Well, lucidity means clarity of expression, and I'm a confidence coach. So I started confidence coaching about, officially 2 years ago. My background is HR. So I was an HR professional for over 20 years. And through my own journey, I came up with confidence coaching and business and a need and a desire for this. It's my passion and I love it. A lot of my clients come to me that are struggling with confidence. And I think everybody needs it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been on both sides of that coin. There's probably three sides of that coin is like lack of confidence, overconfident, and now appropriate level of confidence. And certainly, confident, feeling good about yourself is just a magical place to be. When you don't feel good about yourself, it's not great. I do some counseling on the weekend at an addictions facility. I talk about it all the time as this podcast is really an extension of me. So I try to share as much about my life that's relevant to the conversation. Since you're talking about confidence, self-esteem, things like that, it's a major part in the addiction world, as there's just a big stigma around it. And I've seen the difference that it can make in people. And it's just life-changing. When you walk past the mirror and you don't like dry heave, or you hear yourself playback on a recording, you're like, oh, I'm proud of that. That was good. Rather than, oh my God, we're so self-critical. So why do that, Jennifer? Why
I was an HR instructor for the Canadian Armed Forces, a civilian HR instructor. And with the loss of my dad and being a civilian HR instructor, I found myself in a really dark place where I was questioning everything. And imposter syndrome started to trickle up. So my self-doubt just led me to seek coaching in a lifestyle coach. And I just wanted to look at the parameters of my life and figure out what's next. I feel like I have everything. I have the support of my family. I have a good career where I should be proud of, and I'm still questioning everything about myself. We went through 3 months of some pretty vulnerable tools and circumstances that peeled off levels of my being, and just going deep down into some pretty dark places. And at the end of it, I realized it's all me. It's all my mindset. It's all me telling myself that I can't. It's all me telling myself that I was an imposter in the first place. So I really realized at that moment that taking my desire and my passion for HR, being able to look at the components that I love the most, which is training, coaching, and mentoring, and then realizing through my own journey of self-doubt that confidence at the bottom of everything is what was holding me back from going to the next level. And that alone was what made me actually realize I can help people with this, because I've been through it. And the cool thing about mindset is it's something that you can shift. If you're willing to put in the work, it's something that you can do on your own. You don't have to go do all these hoops and stuff. You can actually just do the work on yourself to believe in yourself, to become confident.
just on that statement alone, I feel like I could riff back and forth with you for like half a day, because these are, I think mindset, honestly, for me, I think life is a arena of the mind for the most part. That's our nervous system, our emotions, how we feel, self-doubt, limiting self-beliefs, all these types of things. No one is going to be a bigger barrier to me than me. And I think me really stems from my mind, my thoughts, and then projected out into the world. So confidence has been it's kind of spoken about in this like abstract concept. If I can measure something and I know the ingredients of it, now I know how to tackle that. But when someone says, it's how you feel about yourself, that's a really vague statement. I feel all kinds of things. I bet you I can't even identify half the things that I feel. I don't even have a label for them. So for me, I've chalked up confidence. And again, this is just regurgitating from one of my mentors who finally gave me some clarity around it, is doing hard things and seeing who I become along the way. I can't just wake up in the morning and put a Post-it note on my mirror and say some affirmations like, you're great, you're beautiful, I love you, these types of things. I don't know that those things are harmful, but if I don't feel beautiful and I am treating myself shitty and I am breaking my commitments to myself, then those Post-it notes and those affirmations, my brain will be like, you're lying to yourself. You can't lie to yourself, I've found.
Yeah.
So it's by going to the gym. When I say I'm going to go to the gym, not for a week, for long periods of time. It's reading that book when I said I would. It's having that hard conversation, not doing that thing with the ex or my partner or a friend, somebody that I care about. Know that the hard conversation needs to be had, but I don't want to do it. Now there's this like underlining feeling of I can do things. I can accomplish. I am capable. And that's what confidence has turned in, has manifested for me now, is moving through challenging arenas and surviving, maybe thriving sometimes, but even surviving is enough. Certainly reflecting on what new developments have come from moving through this arena, what new learnings, what wisdom, what experience, and now how can I help other people with that? I really measure my level of confidence on my impact to the world, on my little environment, big environment. Have I learned things that can now help others? Because if they can help others, they can help me. Or if I can help myself, they can likely help others. And then you just feel good about yourself. So when you talk about confidence, how do you define it? How can we attack it? How can we gain more of it?
So you kind of touched on a lot of points within my program.
Yeah, I tend to ramble a lot, Jennifer.
You stole my thunder. No,
Sorry.
it really does all start with a self-belief. Believing in yourself is the first step. And you touched on the part about not actually believing what you're telling yourself. And that could be the first couple weeks of the program where you're just basically feel like you're lying to yourself. But something within your brain shifts. And if you're looking at those affirmations or you're looking at those positive words and you're seeing yourself as these things that you don't actually believe could possibly happen, something shifts, because you can't say, I am confident, and then in the next sentence say something negative. So the thing with the affirmations is putting yourself in the right mindset to believe those things eventually. It may not happen overnight. My journey, I remember going through it and doing that exercise where I had those posted all over the place and thinking like, oh yeah, Jen's confident, right? I was an introvert in my entire life. I was an only child. I lived on the tails of my parents my entire life, afraid of my own shadow. But those things start translating if you start posting them everywhere, then you start believing in them. So that's the first step, is believing in yourself. Your other thing you touched on is part of my program. It's a circle of control. So how do you actually like create the waves within the circle of your control? Is this a me problem? Is it a them problem? Is it the world problem? And how long do you stay in those buckets? And how long do you let it fester? We could get all upset over what's happening in the world. We could get all upset, but we can't change it. We can only advocate towards it. We can feel good about going to that social gathering on the basis of whatever that concern was. So I feel like control is a big part of your confidence when you start looking at challenges and actually decompressing. what did I contribute to this? What can I fix? As opposed to things with outside of your control, and you just ruminate and fester and get aggravated, and it lasts for days and days. The other thing you touched on, which is so important to confidence, is confidence is like a muscle. So you're building it and you're growing it. And you can't do that by staying the same. So every time you walk through something, you have to walk through it in order to look back to say, yeah, I did it. That moment has been said to take 20 seconds where we could say no or we could say yes. So some kids, I know my kid, he plays baseball every year. Baseball doesn't happen until, like, it ends in September. It doesn't happen again until May. Every May, he's a little bit uncertain. He's a little bit unsure because it's a new team. It's a new environment. It's a new coach. All the parameters of the game has changed. That, if I let him, takes 20 seconds to go through. If he doesn't, and he would just not, because it's uncomfortable. The newness of it is uncomfortable. So I always tell my clients it takes 20 seconds to get past that point of unknown. Whether you say yes to be on this podcast, whether you say yes to that social interaction that might just be a good conversation you have takeaways from. It's 20 seconds. Just sit with it for a minute and say yes to something that may be outside of your comfort zone, because that's the only way you can look back and say that, yeah, you did it.
So 20 seconds. So I'm moving into some arena of uncertainty, right? So I get that uncomfortable feeling and I just accept it. I identify that I am uncomfortable, sweaty palms, sweaty armpits, heart rate elevated. Rather than doing whatever I can to self-soothe in that moment, reach for something or run away or whatever it is, just sitting in it, identifying it, maybe asking why I'm feeling this way, and then what?
Yeah, it's so big. Sitting with it and then what? Just pushing through. Just push through. You're going to make it. There's 20 seconds of uncertainty when I came to meet you today. I got through it. We're here. We're talking through it, right? But there's a moment to which, like, your self-doubt kind of tries to bubble up and says, you're in over your head, like, back out. And everybody has that, and that's okay. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, and then that gets you to the barrier. Once we're over here today, I'll know that it was good and it was fine and I made it through it. And I can look back and say, it only took 20 seconds before I said, abort, abort, abort. And I actually engaged and stayed.
So just for my clarity, just by identifying that there is a feeling of discomfort and sitting in it, when I said, and then what, I meant, like, what do we do next? Do we just need to sit in it and accept it? Is that in it of itself enough to calm me and kind of give me the confidence or the resiliency to move into that arena of uncertainty? Or is there a next step? Once I sit in it, once I label it, I sit in it, I realize I'm not going to die from this. Do I go through a pros and cons in my head? What do I do after that 20 seconds?
Well, that 20 seconds, you'll be in it. So it'll be past the point of where you want to back out.
You're already jumping off the bridge at that point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Bungee
right?
jumping.
You're already in it. You've already met the team, the baseball team. You've already met the person that you're sitting down having a conversation. Your heart rate's already going down because you've passed the point where you think it's going to go sideways. And that's what I love about that. And while you're telling yourself it's only 20 seconds and you're pushing through, it's already done. You're already in it, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I found for me that the highest level of anxiety comes from the anticipation of the thing. When I'm walking up the steps to go bungee jumping, it's like, that's when my heart rate is going nuts. Once I jump, all of a sudden, me in particular, some people may not like it, but feeling of euphoria, freedom, I'm flying. It's fantastic. Rather than, speaking to that girl I'm intimidated of, or going to that business meeting, sitting down with 20 people when I've sat down with 5, or public speaking in front of 500 people. It's always the worry, or you call it excitement, anxiety. I mean, I think we can mix up these emotions many times, but it's uncomfortable. And we attribute uncomfortableness to negativity. I found that comes before the event. If you agree with that, is there something we could do? Because especially on my team, we do a lot of hiring. Team's pretty big. And when I first start training somebody and coaching them, I talk about the phase of suck. The phase of
Mm-hmm.
suck is the very beginning of learning a new skill, especially a skill that has to do with others, because we fear judgment and ridicule and embarrassment so much. If we were just playing the piano in the basement, maybe there probably would be a phase of suck, but it's when 20 people are watching and judging, and we're so caught up in other people's judgment, often thinking they think something that they're not thinking at all. Like everybody's watching me and seeing the pit stains. Meanwhile, they're just caught in their own stuff. And I could be more focused on my efforts rather than what everybody else is thinking. So is there something I can do before I walk onto that stage to go public speak that will calm me, bring my nervous system down a little bit to that parasympathetic nervous system, rather than so elevated I'm now just lost in worry?
Yeah, so we as humans have this ego, or we think that everybody is actually judging and going through all the critical things that we're going through for ourselves, right? So when we get past the point of uncomfortable and we've taken that step onto the stage, we have to remind ourselves when we go to see performances or we go to see something, what are we thinking? Are we thinking, oh, that person's hair is this way, or that person, are we judging? No, we're not. We're there for whatever reason, for a benefit to take for ourselves. That's our ego. So we have to actually go through the point of reminding ourselves, nobody's judging me. And you actually just have to say that out loud or in your head. Nobody's judging me as harshly as I'm judging myself. And that's a mindset switch. That's what we have to keep telling ourselves, because in order to get past that, we have to realize that nobody cares as much as we do about what we look like, how we're going to go through it. And even to the point of what they're going to take away. They're going to take whatever they want to take away from whatever it is we're seeing of you. But the reasoning for being there is not to just tear you down. It's always just to take whatever they could take from the performance or what have you, or the podcast or whatever you want to say. They're not sitting there saying, Jeff should have been this. He should have said that. Why didn't he do this? Why did he wear that color shirt? Nobody's doing that. So we just have to remind ourselves that we are our own worst critic. And we also have to switch that to be our biggest cheerleader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Great points. I don't know what it is. I don't know why we do that. Like you walk onto a stage, however many people are, and you immediately think everybody there is a judge and they are judging your performance. I love philosophy. Philosophy really is my roadmap to being a better human being. And so one of the mental exercises is, what's the worst that can happen? Like literally lay it out. So when I'm walking up to that stage, I said, the worst that can happen is not death, unless I literally trip on a cord and do that. And that's a freak accident. It has nothing to do with me being on stage. But now what's the worst that can happen? Everybody in the room hates it. That sucks.
Yeah.
But am I going to be alive tomorrow?
Yeah.
Am I going to think about this? I have this rule of 10, 10, 10. How will you feel about it in 10 minutes? How will you feel about it in 10 weeks? How will you feel about it in 10 years?
Yeah.
And if my answer is, I won't even remember it in 10 weeks or 10 years, then there is no importance. And I should just chill out and go do the thing. So that's one of those mental exercises where I do a lot of speaking. Being marketers, we're in the public eye a fair bit. And it stopped me for years, Jennifer, before I got in front of people because of that fear. I had to learn these things that you're talking about. No one gives a shit. Like you said, they're just there to take their little gold nugget. And if there is no nugget, then they don't show up.
Yep. And it's totally fine. And the world is the same. No matter what happens on that stage, the world is the exact same as it is tomorrow. And like you said, you're the one that's going to take the most out of it. You're the one that's going to like go through all of the points. Everybody else is just going to take what they take and walk away.
Oh man. I think that's great. Really good stuff. People need to hear this. Fear.
Mm-hmm.
I have my rules for life tattooed on my arm, reminders and rules. And, fear is your green light. I mean, that's what we're talking about here. Do the things, get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Usually that sense of discomfort is some type of fear, anxiety, mental, emotional, and then do hard things. Another one, so that I try to take life very seriously. So I enjoy the heck out of it and don't waste my time. But I could, an hour is not enough to go through all these questions. So we've learned about your business. We learned about why you got into this. You're pretty much addressing the problem in your own life. So you learned the skills to provide a solution to your own problems. And now you're providing those solutions to the world for a price, essentially. You've created your own business to do exactly that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it.
Thanks.
Education, huge point to, I hope whatever we do, if we're sharing it with other people these days, certainly in the world of business, I think there is a demand to let your people know more in detail about how it can affect them. The better information that I have, the more informed decision I can make, the more quickly and more dramatically I can change my behavior and hopefully live a better life. If I believe that fitness, don't do fitness because you'll get injured. And I've been wanting to get in shape for 10 years, but I'm afraid that because I'll get injured, being a fitness trainer for so many years, that was a common thing. I never worked out before because I thought I could get injured. It's like, are people actually thinking these things? So yeah. And I'm probably thinking some crazy things too that are incorrect. So if we can provide some quality education that can really land on people that, oh man, now I can go do that thing. That's the goal. So this question, myths and misconceptions about your industry to me is still fairly new, like the life coach, mindset coach, these types of things. I love it because they've had such an impact on me. But 10 years ago, I don't know that life coach was credited like it should have been. We didn't quite know what it was. Can anybody be a life coach? Like, is Tony Robbins a life coach? We don't really know. So what can you clarify for us that people may be thinking out there that this is that when it's not that?
I think there's a lot of coaches out there. When I was looking at my business, I always wanted to be some sort of coach because I like the mentoring, training, and coaching aspect of HR. I never wanted to be a consultant. I never wanted to consult. I didn't want to drop something and then walk away from it. I wanted to like nurture. And I think, I don't know about other coaches, but I think that's what I love the most about what I do is the relationships I build. Myths for the coaching industry, I'm not really sure. I kind of stay in my own zone. I look at other coaches, I mentor with other coaches, we collaborate. And I think it would be hard to be a coach and not actually care about your clients. And I'm sure there's people out there that actually could do that. That's not why I'm doing it. So yeah, I don't know. I didn't really answer your question, but I
Well,
don't really know
how
what
about this then? Let's talk about the results. Let's talk about who could use this, who could benefit this. So I'm one of the audience members that maybe has heard of your business, hasn't heard of your business, bought your services before, hasn't bought your services before. Why should I consider something like this? What will this get me in the way I have to invest X time, money, etc.? What kind of results can I expect? So am I a candidate for this type of service to work with you?
So some of my clients have been entrepreneurs that have just been afraid to sit on a social platform and talk to themselves on Instagram and promote themselves because of lack of confidence. I've dealt with some clients who have been um, dealing with imposter syndrome like I was. They're a CEO of a company and they don't believe that they should be there, or they didn't walk the walk that they thought they should have in order to be in that spot. So they're suffering from imposter syndrome. I've dealt with that with them. What I do within my program is I unveil all the things that are holding you back. I unveil those narratives that are telling you that you can't. I'm looking at those situations and telling you your ego is getting in your way because people aren't judging you. We go through all the steps within my program to basically figure out that it is confidence that's holding you back. It is your narrative of telling yourself that you can't. You're overwhelmed because you're stacking stuff on your plate and you're hiding from something else that's keeping you in an unhappy state. I ended up going down this journey because me and my mom lost my dad in 2020. My dad worked very, very hard for retirement. He never got there. So life is so short. And I know that sounds so cheesy and cliche, but
It is, though.
it is. And if you are not happy in any bucket of your life, I encourage you to fix it now. And it could be confidence that's holding you back. It was for me. And that's why I started this whole journey. And that's why I'm helping people and coaching and getting them to believe in themselves and go dance on the street if that's what makes you happy. Just do whatever makes you happy because it's so short. And next thing you know, it's gone.
Okay. So I come to you and you help me first off, identify my mental barriers.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the first things I'm guessing you do, right?
Yeah.
And then, so confidence to me is, although it's one word, it affects so many other categories. Like it has cascading positive or negative effects, whether you have it or don't
Mm-hmm.
have it. So it really is a big factor to how we feel about ourselves, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong about any of these things. But when I'm a business person, so there are some business people out there that just want to make a boatload of money. Nothing wrong with that. They want to be
Mm-hmm.
masters at their craft. It's fantastic. They want to make the world
Mm-hmm.
better than they found it, have a great impact, make a great offer, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Business is their game that they're playing. It certainly is for me. Life is the big game.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Like I'm an athlete of life, I like to call it. But business is the vehicle through which I live out most of my life. It takes up about 60% of my waking hours. And it's
Yeah.
the thing that I touch the most people with and hopefully create the biggest impact. It's the most
Mm-hmm.
effective vehicle for me to live the best life that I can.
Yeah.
And I've certainly found that my mindset, the way I feel about me, is the greatest thing bringing me forward or the greatest thing holding me back. It's either a launching pad or a barrier. So for the people listening to this, they may be thinking, no, I need to work on recruiting, or I need to work on profit and loss, or efficiencies, or systems, or key performance indicators. All of those things are great.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, the foundation is the mindset. You can get any of these things, these ingredients to make the cake. But
Mm-hmm.
if you don't believe you deserve it, or you believe I'm getting credited for things that I don't deserve, imposter syndrome, or I can't make it through this hard bout of whatever, would
Mm-hmm.
you say that the mindset is the beginning stages? It's the foundation on which we build our house upon.
I definitely think so. I at the beginning of my journey, I was taking on everything to make everybody around me happy, and I wasn't realizing that nobody was asking me to do that. I was just doing it, and I was never putting myself first. I was never investing the time in myself. I was never looking at why is Jen not happy? Why is she feeling this way? Um, Once I made that shift, I started showing up 10 times better for all of those people I was trying to serve um, than ever before. And I think that is so fundamentally important. And that is why I'm happy every day. And that's why you can take it into your career and take it into all these places, your family. I deal with a lot of women, and a lot of women have a lot of things on their plate that they've taken on themselves. And I sit there and I ask them, who told you you had to do this? Why can't this person help you? Reaching out for help. Well, you don't reach out for help unless you believe you deserve it. And this is an investment within yourself. And it's extremely hard, but it's so important. If you're unhappy, it's an investment in yourself to reach out to any coach. It doesn't have to be me. Just to figure out how to eliminate those barriers, start talking better to yourself, shift your mindset, and then you show up 10 times better than you ever did for the people that you're trying to serve on a daily basis.
Yeah, well said. How do you feel about people saying the greatest investment you'll ever make is the one within yourself? Number one. And number two, how do you feel about the statements out there that say always put yourself first? Focus on yourself first. Get your house clean before you try to clean other homes. What do you think
I,
about those two statements?
I totally agree. We can use the analogy on the plane, right? They always say put your mask on first so you can help others. that's it. That's the secret. That's the secret. You have to believe in yourself. I tell a lot of the people when I'm doing my public speaking engagements, I don't talk to my husband and say, how did I do today on the podcast? He's not here. He's not with us right now. He's not listening. He's not going to be the one that says, yeah, Jen, you did a good job. I need to tell myself that first and then take it to him for the validation. And now he's going to say, yeah, you did good. But I need to be the person. This is my life. This is my conversation. I need to own that space and acknowledge my achievements within myself before I look outward for other people to acknowledge it. That's confidence.
I love it. And let's do this in real time to kind of put you on a spot here, since you are the confidence coach. How are you talking to yourself about this podcast right now? Do you feel good about it?
I do feel good about it. Only because I always show up with intention. My intention is to spread the word. If one person gets something from this podcast, I've succeeded. That's
Boom.
it.
Yep.
I'm not looking for any gratification outside of that. And like I just said, I showed up here and I put my intention out. My intention is to spread the word of confidence and to get people to pick up a book and, even work on their self-belief. And like if one person succeeds from one line that I said here, then I did good today.
You just made the world a little better. Before we get on to the next couple things, I love reading. It's a major, I shouldn't say it's a major. It's not like fitness is a major practice of my life. It's just a practice of my life that I think produces outsized returns based on the investment. 45 minutes of reading a day is like 3 books a month, 40 books a year, drastically changed your life for me anyway, going from not being a reader 10 years ago to being a person who likes to read now. Any books that you suggest? 1, 2, 3 that you're like, man, you read these, it'll open your mind up.
You put me on the spot. I have so many. Anything Brene Brown, I find phenomenal.
I knew you were going to say her. She's right behind me. Yeah, she's a good one, though.
She's actually simplified the things we complicate, to be honest. She's really simplified it and has been a key to my success. Starting with
men too, for any of the men that are listening,
yes.
Because she's a woman and she really studied the science behind vulnerability.
Yes.
That's not gender specific. Gentlemen, read it. Yes. You'll get benefit from it. Read it and tell me you didn't. I'd love to hear that conversation. I just want to point that out there, as a lot of men will be like, oh, come on, that's for women. No, it's not.
No. Her she really, like you said, the vulnerability component was really when I actually had to look at myself in the mirror and say, Jen, take the wall down. Nobody cares. Be vulnerable, be honest about who you are, show up as you every day. And life is a lot easier doing that. So she taught me that for sure, 100%. Starting with Why, Simon Sinek.
Yes.
And then Hello. Yeah, that was the first one. But I could go on. And I think books are such an easy resource for us to get, pick up, and change whatever we want to work on. When I initially started this journey, I started focusing on why I wasn't happy. And so I started reading about happiness and studying the art of happiness and listening to podcasts about happiness. And here's the thing, you do that, it's pretty hard to be miserable when you're spending a lot of your free time talking about or listening about happiness, right? So I find if you're like kind of stuck, reach out to or research a book that really speaks to you. And that will motivate you to kind of like make the changes that you need to, or feel like you're investing in yourself in professional development. That's how I started this journey for sure.
Yeah, that is such a life-changing point. When I talk to people about it, I say, listen, identify your problem. If it's if you can't even get that specific, you just feel sad, go on to Amazon. Anything that has more or that has 4.5 stars or above, that has 200 reviews, 4.5 or above 200, you're in a good place. You don't need, I haven't picked the right book yet. I haven't found the right book. How long has it been? 3 months. Just read. They're all, if you get 5 books on happiness, the amount of overlapping ideas will be like 50+% of the book, which is great, because if there was 1,000 unique ingredients to being happy, that's a problem. I want the world's best all saying the same thing, so that whether I get it from him or her or him or her, it doesn't matter. If they 4.5 stars and above, couple hundred reviews, whatever your problem is, you'll probably be in the right place. But Simon Sinek and Brene Brown, they've stood the test of time and are world-class, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you.
On to you, Jennifer. You've already given us so much, which you knew the questions before coming in here. I've asked you at least 6 that weren't on the questionnaire, but I love these types of topics. Mental health, getting the most out of life, for me, really comes down to how I feel about myself. No matter what actions I'm putting out into the world, if at the end of the day, I like to reflect on my day, it's one of the practices provide me a lot of value. I think, I don't even know why I'm doing that. I don't like it. I'm not convicted in it. And after all of that activity, I don't feel that good. I need to redirect in some way. I need to feel good about what I'm doing because, like you said, life can be short. I may not be here tomorrow. There's a lot that is outside of my control that dictates whether I wake up tomorrow or not. So if you believe that, which I do, first one is remember you will die. Because it will happen. I was stamped with an end date when I was born, just don't know when. You might as well feel good as much as you can because it feels better than feeling shitty. So I could talk about these things all day. I'm really happy this is what you do because I just think it's so necessary in this day and age. Our mind is a very complicated place, and the people out there that have really put their hat in the ring to say, not only am I going to tackle this insanely hard thing, but I'm going to simplify it in a way that could really derive a lot of value for people and get them to understand themselves a bit more. I think that's a big part of what you do is self-discovery, making us aware of what is leading to me talking so much shit to myself, and then what can lead me to talking less shit or actually being a cheerleader of myself. It's easy to say, be a cheerleader of yourself. But when we have so many thoughts each day and many of them are negative, it's like, I get the concept, but I can't do it. There's some disconnect here. So I think it's amazing what you're doing. But let's talk about you a little bit. Outside of your business, what puts a smile on your face, Jennifer?
Well, we just talked about number one, reading and getting knowledge from some expert really puts a smile on my face.
You're a knowledge hunter?
I'm a knowledge hunter. I love that stuff. Just this past March, I started going into the schools. I love speaking to the kids about confidence and giving them that control. And these 20-second to get through it tips and all that kind of stuff. I love that. And on Fridays, I volunteer at Flourish. I don't know if you've heard it, but
she's great.
That lights my heart. I go in there and I do the pink couch chats with them, and I've worked one-on-one with some of their women in the Fresh Start program, and that just lights me up. Personally, I love being around my family. I love being around friends and hanging out. And I think social interaction face to face is something that we're losing these days. So I love surrounding myself with people that light my candle and keep me lit.
What a great metaphor for that. I don't think I've heard that before. But yeah, Flourish, she was, I think, our second podcast. Really cool concept out there. Still no not the full thing. I'm still green when it comes to Flourish, but after bringing her on the pod, now I know more about her, and now more people know about her, and it's there's some great altruism there. There's really a lot of service for the community in that little flower shop. I think it's great what she's doing.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all that with us. Let's talk about doing some hard things now, which building up confidence, self-discovery, self-awareness, all of these things. I think a lot of us don't do them because they're harder than going out there and hitting the gym or whatever it is, reading a book. I think it's easier to focus on things that we can't control and justify it that way, or other people. But I don't even think I need to provide a lot of context. Normally I do, but I really think talking about our failures, our bumps in the road, our valleys of despair throughout our life, every human has them. But in this day and age, especially, we are so focused and get rewarded by sharing our successes. Oh, new car, great. Trophy wife or husband, awesome. New status symbol, new promotion, clap for you. But somebody promoting, I just failed my business. I just lost my relationship. I'm struggling with an addiction. I'm struggling with weight loss, whatever. We're afraid of ridicule. We're afraid of judgment. How are they going to view me? So I'm not going to show you that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much value left on the table where if you do talk about that, first off, you can't come at me if I've already admitted to all my faults. If I've written a book on all the shitty things I've done, it's like, you really can't judge me outside of that anymore. You got no weaponry to come at me. So I've almost reinforced or protected myself against that. That's a little byproduct that I don't maybe think should be the main focus, but it's not a bad little tool to insulate yourself. Second to that is I think our failures, the way society deems them, I look at failure differently now, but I think it's the most information dense experience we can have to growing. If I succeed, if I keep getting 100% on that test, brain's going to say, par for the course. No need to change. You're winning, essentially. But if I bump up against that barrier, especially if it hurts, it's like, I don't want to go through that again. So you have a couple of options. You either quit so that you never face that pain again, or you learn something to get over that. And if you face it again, it's a little less painful. And certainly the people that I follow in my life, the most successful people, most of them don't know me. I'm talking like great leaders or authors, but we have some people, I've been very lucky to have some great mentors, have faced the most challenges, often have been through the most pain. So when people think success, it gets easier. I get more money, I can do more things, more freedom. It's like that stuff is hard earned. And maybe that's the point. Is their life becomes so much more rewarding because they found freedom through discipline, through moving through hard things. So we love to ask the guests on the show, any trials, tribulations, some really hard shit you've done, Jennifer, that in the moment probably felt pretty uncomfortable, maybe even sucked. But when you look back at it now, whether a day, 2 months, 5 years, 10 years, you would not remove that ingredient because it has become integral to the recipe that is you, leading you towards enjoying your life as you do today.
Yeah. I think mine was going through the grief of losing dad. I think that was a fundamental point where I just started questioning everything. And I could no longer uphold the reflection of perfection. I wasn't perfect anymore. I always had that. I always made sure everybody thought that. And I couldn't do it. I tried very hard, but I could not keep that status.
Is that like putting on a brave face kind of idea?
Yeah. Like, I don't know if you've experienced loss, but once you experience a loss like him in my life, didn't know why all of a sudden I'd start crying like 3 months later at 1 o'clock. Grief was not something that I can control. And I always try to control everything. And that became the reality of like, you just got to lower the fence and be vulnerable. You're in a state and that's okay. And that was not done in a week. That was done over, 4 years. And I'm still going through it. And I think realizing that all these great people still question themselves. They still have days where they just don't feel the best that they possibly can be. They're not confident in certain moments, and self-doubt never just actually goes away. But being okay with that. It's just, how long do you let it sit with you? Do you let it take a whole week or a month or a year away from you, or do you let it take an hour and move on? So challenging and breaking down my perfectionism was a life changer for me, and realizing it was okay to be imperfect.
I love it. I think perfection is found in imperfection. Whatever made us, depending on what you believe, religion or not, but we're pretty awesome and we're pretty imperfect. Thankfully so. If everything was perfect and that ideal utopia, I don't know, I think that would be a crazy little place to live. Whereas everything I wanted, I got like that. Every skill I wanted, I got like, there was no earning. I don't know, the whole world would be very, very different. I think it's in the earning that we find ourselves pushing ourselves. What am I capable of? You're given this incredible body, mind, nervous system. It can do ridiculous things.
Yeah.
I'm sure no one has died thinking, I've maxed it out. I've maxed out being a human. I can no longer do or gain anymore. I doubt it, which means to me that we're pretty limitless. So that's one of my goals. But beautifully said. I appreciate you sharing that with us in a big way. And what was the point that came up into my head is that grief is not something that's completed. It's something that stays with you. Your hardships stay with you. I just think we get more accustomed to living with them, and maybe even more so looking at a meaning to them in some way, rather than just, this terrible thing happened to me. Woe is me. I'm a victim of it. It's like, that's one way of looking at it, and you can choose to do that. Or you could look at it, there's a greater meaning to this. I was held back that grade. I lost that relationship to reveal in what I was doing incorrectly with this relationship. I needed to go through this to get to the next one. For me, I ended up becoming an addictions coach on the weekend because I busted both my legs, which led me to having to go up against that dragon of dependency with painkillers. So I had to go through that. And to be honest, that just flipped my whole life entirely, led to some very positive avenues through which to take. And I just think I was living so out of alignment that was my kind of wake up call. Although I've had many, nothing as drastic as that. That was comparable for me in the pain it produced, maybe similar to your father in my own way. But that was something that has never left me. It's still a part of me, but has now been turned into something positive, which I believe is a choice. So do you believe grief can be completed? It can be finalized?
No, not when you're dealing with a person that has that profound effect on your life and was like, we always called ourselves the units. Like we were a unit of three and a pod of three, and now we're two. And I don't think I'm ever supposed to get over that. I think I'm just supposed to carry him with me and do things that, I would assume he would have done differently. And just show up with intention, good intention. And that's fundamentally what made me go down this road and what made me question just doing stuff for the sake of doing it. He worked for the weekend and he saved a lot of money for retirement. He never got there. And I thought, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go on the vacation. I'm going to take my kid wherever he wants to go. Like we're going to have experiences and not wait for tomorrow, because tomorrow may never come. And that's something I don't want to put on my kiddo. I want him to have a different view of life and just do things that make him happy today.
Yeah. Make the most of the moments that you actually have, rather than, I'm all for deferred gratification. I think some of the best things in life come through deferred gratification, like fitness, like wealth, like love relationships. But that doesn't mean, some people look as deferred gratification as, paying with pain now to have some pleasure down the road. It doesn't have to be that way. You can enjoy the moments and stack the deck in your favor for future results. Some people look at, if today was my last day, I would go rob a bank. I would, go hit on a supermodel. I would eat all the chocolate in the world. It's like, again, you have the right to live whatever way you want, but that's seeking pleasure. I'm going to feel shitty after all of those things if I am here tomorrow. How can I enjoy and get a feeling of pleasure while being a good human being? And if I am here tomorrow, don't pay the consequences, maybe even push my life forward a little bit more. So there's just some fantastic concepts that you're giving us to mull over. I think some really important things that people should consider: whether your life is put in order, could always get better, or if it's in disarray, could certainly get better. Understanding the mind, how to speak to ourselves. I look at myself as a relationship with, this, and then my internal roommate, trying to constantly make a better relationship between the two, because Truth is, Jennifer, we are not always aligned. Sometimes he or she or it or whatever it is up there is being a little bugger,
Yep.
but we're getting better. The
Yeah.
more intention, as you've used that word many times today. Yeah, be intentional. Couple last questions for you, Jennifer. If people are interested, how can they find you? How do
So
they
I'm on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at luciditycorp.com. My website is luciditycorp.com. You can just reach out and book a session there. I always like to do a consultation first to make sure that we're aligned, and make sure that I'm able to assist you, because there's some clients that I can't, and that's totally okay. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Beautiful. So luciditycorp.com and Lucidity Corp on Instagram. That's the main social platform that you use?
Yes.
And phone numbers or emails are there, are very easy to access.
They're all there. Yep.
Beautiful.
They're all there.
Last question for you before we wrap. As I said earlier, this podcast is really an extension of me. I think, if your business is really something meaningful to you, I would argue that for every one of us, it's an extension of who we are. So I only talk about a handful of things on this podcast because I only talk about a handful of things in my life: fitness, mental health, definitely one, purpose, impact, entrepreneurship, mentorship. These are things that I consider a lot because they've provided so much value to my life, especially with the investment required. I look at all these things at getting massively outsized returns compared to the investment. So impact and purpose is a major driver. I mean, that's where all these came from. All of these 15 rules equate to what I believe my purpose is and the impact that I want to leave. So I was very lucky to bump up against a mentor when I started seeking them out. Early 20s, she taught me about impact. She taught me to reflect on my impact up to this point at 23. Have you thought about it at all? No, it was like girls, money, cars, all the superficial stuff that I needed to go through to learn that there's more meaning to life than just flashy and status and other people's judgment. And then she taught me to be intentional about the day. She was the first one to tell me, you were born, you were stamped with an end date, and you will never know when that's coming, no matter what anybody says to you. So why not make the most of it now with the time that you actually have? So be intentional about the day. What do you want the impact of the day to be, so that you can reflect on it at night and be like, did I do what I set out to do? And she called it earning your sleep. All the demons and all the bullshit that we do out there really starts plaguing us before we go to bed when everything gets quiet. But if you're living in alignment with yourself and you're doing some good, you'll sleep peacefully. And that has resonated with me for the last 15 years. And then she said, for however long you are here, however long it goes, what do you want the net result of your impact to be? Whether just on yourself, on your family, on your world. I look at them all in one the same. If I'm impacting myself, I'm impacting others. Others are impacting the world. And a massive ripple effect that I think goes well beyond our line of sight. So we like to ask the guests on the show. It's one of the most interesting things that I talk about, most curious about, and has become extremely valuable to me, is impact. So, Jennifer, what would you like your impact to be?
If I help anybody just realize that their own internal dialogue is so crucially important to how they're approaching relationships, how they're approaching their career, how they're approaching their value. I've done it. I've been there, and that is why I'm doing this. I'm not doing this for the paycheck. I'm not doing this for any reason other than to share with people that I've been there. I've struggled. I had everything aligned for me and taken out from underneath my feet. And at the end of the day, I was my own worst enemy, and I was the person that was holding me back. So I think as humans, we tend to blame other people around us, our boss, whatever, oh, we can't do this because of this. We can't do this because of that. Look at yourself and really get serious with who you are and how you're contributing to your days, because nobody is answering what you're doing for you. Nobody's saying, are you sure you're taking care of yourself? You have to really do it on your own and validate your own self-worth and your own self-value. That's the impact that I want to kind of spread. It's just like, be your cheerleader, be the person that is cheering you on, and then everything else kind of falls into place.
If I had a removable mic, I would drop it right now. Can we just get like a virtual dap right there? Can you give me one? Well said. Damn, that hour went by super quick. Jennifer,
Yeah.
I'd like to thank you for coming on the show. Really, 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 in the most truest of the sense, we call ourselves human connectors. The whole idea to us is that we want to be the hub connecting great ideas to the people that need to hear it. Religion is an amazing experiment of marketing. I don't have all the greatest ideas, and it's really not my job to get all these groundbreaking ideas. What I've found is something that I excel in is finding the people who do have these ideas that can really solve major problems. And maybe we solve our own little unique problems, but the experts, find the experts, put them in the rooms with the people who need the experts. And this conversation is an example of that. I think it can change lives. I imagine you've changed many lives. Certainly your work and work like that has drastically impacted my life. So I want to thank you for coming on the show, and look forward to many more conversations with you. I love this stuff.
Thank you so much for having me.
Until then, you have a great afternoon, Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Good Neighbor Podcast Midhurst. To nominate your favorite local businesses to be featured on the show, go to gnpmidhurst.com. That's gnpmidhurst.com or call 705-413-3775.